Hi, my name is Jason Birmingham. This is like the eighth take. Hope I get it right this time. Sorry I'm late. I just got my new job and things have been pretty crazy. So, let's just get into it. We're going over Surprised by Hope and chapter 10, Surprised by Hope, and we're answering kind of the five W's of the resurrection. And the first one, who will be resurrected? Wright accurately says that everyone will be, which in Acts 24:15, Paul affirms that and says both the wicked, or the righteous and the unrighteous, the just and the just, everyone is being resurrected. Second question, where will the resurrection take place? And I think this book does a wonderful job of dispelling our common notions of what the afterlife looks like. Whereas before, I definitely thought, like before I even read this book, I definitely thought that when I die, my spirit was going to float to heaven and there I would remain forever. But he points out that no, heaven is going to come down and join and be be married to the earth, and is going to create the New Jerusalem, which gives us a very cooperative role to play within bringing about that transformation. And it's made me take life more seriously so far, and really appreciate this book, man. All right, third question. What will the resurrection body be? So this is actually probably my favorite question in here, because there's a lot of, because it's not, I mean, it's not magical, it's not the right word for it, but it feels good to think about. Feels good to think about because it answers the longing of what I wish life would be to some extent, but Wright he quotes Paul, and Paul says that we will have the weight of glory behind us. In other places, Paul also talks about us having a spiritual body, which I think some people have kind of taken in a Platonic, maybe Gnostic sense of, I'll be able to like put my fist through you or something. I'm going to be incorporeal. But I don't necessarily think so. I think when Paul speaks of a spiritual body, he's speaking about like the meaningful essence of something. And I want to contrast that with what our current scientific worldview is of the world. Whereas before, when I was going through school, I had to take my science classes, and we'd learn about geology or physics or chemistry and all that kind of stuff. Like I literally looked through the world, but like through the lens, not of a scientist necessarily, but like I would see the world as just material objects that have been brought about because of causation, which added a lot of which really separated my heartfelt true experience of them. Now I'll give you an example of that. Whereas when I'm driving down the road now, because I'm so used to navigational technologies, when I'm driving down the road, instead of me experiencing the land that I'm driving through, the towns that I'm driving through, instead I'm seeing everything through the lens of like a topographical navigational system. Whereas like I'm only seeing like roadways and networks and dots, as buildings pass me by. I see them as like navigational place markers, not as like a building, not as like a small business, like a family run business with that has rich story and meaning behind it, but just as like this thing going by, Whereas I think spiritual bodies, the weight of glory, it more reflects about what Aldous Huxley talks about in The Doors of Perception. And in this book, he describes his clinical studies of mescaline, and he talks about him contemplating the form of a desk chair. And he actually references Vincent van Gogh's very famous painting of a chair, where he says he finally understood why Van Gogh painted it the way he did. If you don't know what chair I'm talking about, look it up, because it's kind of cool. All right, so the fourth question is, why will we be given new bodies? And this is a really weird question, because it kind of depends on like where you place the emphasis of this question. It's like, why will we be given new bodies? It's like, well, we're given bodies so that we can actually interact with the world to come, because how else do you interact with the world? It's not like we're omniscient. God didn't create us to be omniscient. So we need bodies. So it's kind of, so it seems like a silly question, but it's like, all right, well, maybe the question is more asking like, well, why is creation continuing as it is? Like, why is there the New Jerusalem? And I think the only way to answer that question, I don't think there is an answer to that question, would be to ask, well, why did God create anything to begin with? And, people say it's out of love. Totally understand and I appreciate that answer. And I think it's pretty accurate too. But, in Genesis 1, it says, like, it just says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Doesn't really get into the why. I think the why is found within the cinematic, triumphant beauty of the human will. And I think that that's something that's God-given and something worthy of being saved, right? Worthy of being saved. All right. Last question is, how will the resurrection take place? And Wright says the resurrection will take place by the Spirit. And at first I was thinking that he's wrong, because I was thinking the resurrection is a new creation, whereas Jesus Christ is the Logos. Nothing has been made if it wasn't for Jesus Christ. So like he's like the rubber where he's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. But then I was kind of thinking, well, maybe the resurrection is not a new creation as much as it is like a restoration to its original essence. And then I was thinking, well, yeah, it probably is through the Spirit, because the Spirit comes down and dwells within us to restore our fallen, broken hearts. So it would only make sense that would also happen to the world. So I'm a little bit over time here. That's it. Thank you.